And we are live. Hey.
Hey.
Yeah. Like, don't leave me hanging here.
Hello.
I'm not the only one here. Welcome back to the Content Swap Podcast, the podcast where we swap content and talk about it at the end of the week. You are joined by Parker and...
Aaliyah.
She's here. Anyway, yeah, so it's a new week, and we've got new things to talk about.
And we're in much better spirits than we were last week.
Yeah, I had a coffee today. So I'm energized. I've exercised. It's 4 p.m., but I've got a lot of energy, and I'm totally ready to do this. How about you?
Yeah, I'm at a normal feeling, I guess.
All right, I'm pumped, and you're at a normal. It's got the makings of a good podcast.
As long as I'm not in a bad mood.
Sweet.
Then we're all good.
All right, cool. Just checking that our audio levels are good, and yeah, looks great. Okay, so what's new this week?
Daisy Jones and the Six came out.
Yes,
First
it
3
did.
episodes.
Yes, it
We
did.
love it. We went to like a viewing party with my boss and some of my coworkers, and we really enjoyed it. It's pretty freaking close to the book.
Yeah. So if you're not aware, Daisy Jones and the Six is a book that we covered in a podcast in one of our first episodes. I think it was Daisy Jones and the Six and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And yeah, that was my first time reading the book.
Yeah.
You assigned it to me.
Yeah, it's the only book that I actually reread like every year.
Every year.
Every year.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah. Same.
And, yeah. And just like exactly as you said, the show that's coming out on Amazon Prime right now it feels very faithful to the essence of the book.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually has exceeded my expectations. I was really skeptical. I was skeptical first when I saw the casting because I was like, that's not really how I envisioned the characters.
Yeah.
But I was pleasantly surprised, and I'm really enjoying them all.
It's captured the essence of the characters with the casting and the music and all of that better than I envisioned it than when I read the book.
Yeah, and it's moving through it pretty fast.
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like they cut out stuff just to speed it along. Like, it feels like you're still getting exactly what you needed from the story.
Exactly. It seemed like it kind of cut out anything that wasn't necessarily important for telling the story in a visual medium. And yeah, I'm actually quite excited because it seems like it's covered like half of the book already.
I'm like, we're moving fast.
And it's 3 episodes out of 10 for this limited series. So yeah, it seems like they're gonna really jam pack the next 7 episodes with expanding in the right places, or at least I've been led to believe as a viewer that it's going to do justice in the right spots. Yeah.
They also came out with like an album, the Aurora album, and put it on Apple Music and Spotify and all that. And it's really good.
It is.
Yeah.
It is really good.
It's like a modern day Fleetwood Mac. Essentially.
I mean, it's trying to capture a sound of like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And it does a great job.
Yeah, it does.
Shouts out to the sound editors, mixers, producers, and performers of that album.
They also, I found, because I was like, there's other music that's in the show that's not this Aurora album. And they have each episode a whole playlist, I guess, of those songs. And so I was able to download like all the music from the first 3 episodes. Wow. And I've put it in like in one playlist that's just like Daisy Jones and the Six playlist. And so it includes not only the music from the Aurora album, but like Simone's music, like every song that gets played in the show.
Even like soundtrack music, like famous music that's already known, or
I think some of it's in there. But like a lot of it is like the Dunn Brothers songs.
So this is like all original music.
I think so.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But it's still a lot.
Yeah. That's a lot for a show production to do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
The
show, is there any like soundtrack music? Well, they played a lot of who is it?
They play like just general music that you would know.
Yeah.
from that same time period.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to look. I haven't listened to it yet because I was listening to the Aurora album today, but
yeah,
it's a lot.
So right on. Excited to keep watching Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yeah.
Episodes release on Fridays. What else is going on? What else is new this week?
Attack on Titan is back.
Attack on Titan is back. And they're still out here playing games.
I know.
We have watched, I want to say, a third of this new episode that just came out. And it's the final season, part 3.
The real final.
Yeah. It's like,
the actual final.
The actual final part of the final season. But not actually, because
I know, because there's going to be another part.
So this third part, they're doing 2 episodes that are both an hour long, and they dropped the first of these 2 episodes yesterday, and then they are not releasing the second one until the fall. So it's really Attack on Titan, the final season, part 3, part 1.
It's like, I love this show, but because of all this freaking, here's the final season, just kidding, there's more, just kidding, there's more, just kidding, there's more. It's like, get it done with. I'm like, let's finish it. What is this? What is this? And like, it's such a complex show.
Yeah.
It's so hard to follow what all has happened because so much has happened.
And it's been a year since we've engaged with the story.
It's like, this is not the kind of
stuff.
Yeah, it's like, this is not the kind of show where you can have these long hiatuses, these long breaks, because then every time it's coming back, we got to watch a whole recap of the whole show. And it's like, we don't know what happened because there's too much. And it's like, just put it out. Just put it out.
You know, like this qualm as a fan with this show is not new, though. You know, the I was telling you earlier, the first season of this came out in 2013.
Yeah.
And then the second season didn't come out until like 2017. Like, fans of that original season, which is fantastic, had to wait a very long time for the show to come back. And then they got half a season for that season too. It's only like 13 episodes.
Which is like, why? Because at some point they start doing CGI stuff, right? To make it like an easier, quicker process?
Kind of. I don't know if... Well, I mean, yeah, I think definitely part of that was to make it a little easier to animate. But they did a little bit of that in season 3. Mm-hmm. But then, season 4, like the final season, which is done by a completely different animation studio... I think all of the Titans are just CGI to kind of speed up that animation process, because those are by far the most complex artistically.
So like, what is the holdup?
Is still, I mean, it's being done by Studio Mappa, which is like the biggest anime studio right now, known for fantastic animation, and they are also working on Jujutsu Kaisen,
which they take forever too.
And they're also working on Chainsaw Man and this. Those are like 3 of the biggest animes, being handled by one studio. Yeah. So I get it. They've just taken on a lot.
I guess I can't complain because I feel like this is what Marvel should be doing. It's like taking time to really craft their products and not just throwing out a ton of stuff in quick succession. Mm-hmm. So I'm like contradicting myself, but at the same time, I'm just like, how are we supposed to remember everything? And they don't do a recap. It's not like they're like previously on
Attack on Titan.
It's just like boom into it, and you're like, wait, where are we? Who is that? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What happened?
No, we had to watch a YouTuber's recap. Yeah, which is funny because we watched that guy's recap, and I think last year, once we finished those episodes, I think we watched that same recap.
Yeah. Yes, because it was before the final season started that we watched the recap.
So we watched that same guy's other recap?
Yeah. We watched a recap of the whole show because I was like, it's been so long, I don't know how we even got here.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is we watched this guy's recap that he put together after the end of the final season part 2. Yeah. And he says in that video, like, this is just to recap what happened, but also, you might be watching this before final season part 3 comes out in 2023. So, enjoy. And I feel like we actually watched it in both instances.
Yeah.
The video is by this guy Sage Arts,
honestly,
I believe. So go check that out if you
and Mappa needs to pay him because he's saving all of us. Like I know for a fact every single one of us is going to his videos to be like, bro, tell us what happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few videos by a few YouTubers. That's just the one that we
But his is good.
chose.
His is concise. He's like, this is what you need to know. Don't worry about all this other stuff. Yeah. Boom. There you go. Yeah. Enjoy.
Well, I think once this show is all said and done,
if it ever is,
once it's finally over, the whole thing will stand the test of time as being a great show, and it was all very well done, and it'll all have been worth it in the end. Yes, but sure. By far the least conventional release schedule of anything I have ever experienced.
I swear, when this thing finishes, if immediately after Jujutsu Kaisen season 2 is not dropped, I'm screaming. I'm going to Mappa myself.
Okay. I don't think Jujutsu Kaisen season 2 is coming out this year. They just did Chainsaw Man, and now they're doing this.
All right, well,
Jujutsu Kaisen got a movie last year.
All right, well, January.
All right, I think
put it out.
All right, January. I feel good about Jujutsu Kaisen season 2 will either have been released or we will know when it's going to be released by then.
I need it.
There could be a release date right now and it's like July or something and we just don't know because we haven't been tapped into the news for anime in quite some time.
I know. I love Jujutsu Kaisen. I think that's what I'm waiting for because I've been in an anime rut and just like nothing has really stuck with me and I haven't like really been keeping up with anything. And I think it's because all I want is Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm like, I want season 2 and I'm not getting it. And so then I'm just like, pause on anime.
Yeah, I haven't been as into anime lately for different reasons. Mine being like I'm not getting as much entertainment value out of like the new stuff, and I think there's just because there's so much old stuff that I think is really good that I still want to show you. Like there's still so many anime out there that I haven't shown you yet. Yeah. That I'm like I'm more excited about watching stuff I've already watched than watching something new. And on top of that, I'm watching One Piece, which is just an infinite show. It just...
You're literally going to be watching that till the day you die. Like, as soon as you finish the very last episode, you're going to be like, I finished, and then, like, die.
Okay. For those that don't know, One Piece first came out in the late 90s. Like, it has been consistently coming out since the late 90s, and it is 1,000 episodes plus.
You're crazy.
I think I'm at episode 560 something, and honestly, like once you make it that far into something, like you just got to run through it. You just got to dedicate a fraction of your life to finishing that thing, because I am deep.
You're in too deep.
I'm so deep into it. It's a whole world. It keeps getting bigger the more I watch it, and it slaps. Like I love it. It's so good. The emotional payoffs that you get from a show that you have put that much time into just hit so different compared to a show that's trying to do an emotional payoff in like 3 episodes. You're like, oh yeah, that was good. Wow. But when One Piece is doing it, you're like, oh, because it's like, a whole month of your time was leading up to this moment, and now it's happening, and you're invested, you're excited, and it's fantastic. So, and it does a great job of building out the world and teasing things, and then paying those things off way later, and you just going like, oh my gosh, whoa, what's happening? It's great. Anyway, so yeah, new shows like Chainsaw Man aren't really quite hitting like that, and that's why I watched the first episode of Chainsaw Man and was like, all right, I'll watch it, but I'm not in a rush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. Speaking of Marvel as well, we did see Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania last week. This is a big intro section, but I feel like there's a lot of good stuff to talk about. Yeah. It's like a bonus episode at the beginning of an episode.
Yeah.
So we saw Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. What'd you think of that? Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
It was what it was.
What more can be said?
There's like nothing else to say about it.
I mean, the Marvel stuff just hasn't been exciting since the last, 2 years. Like, there'll be standouts like WandaVision or Spider-Man, No Way Home.
Black Panther,
Wakanda Forever. But outside of that...
Yeah.
But at least we're getting one good thing a year. You know?
I guess.
But what do we have coming? Guardians 3 comes out this year. I am actually quite excited about that. I think that will be good because Guardians is, they're kind of contained in their own space and they have defined that space well. And, it's been, they've been like building up the building blocks to tell the stories that they are telling in their, part of the MCU. Whereas Ant-Man, we didn't know what the next Ant-Man was going to be about. And they're like, yeah, it's Kang. And we're like, okay. And we're going into the quantum realm. Cool. Throw all the CGI at it, but make us just not care. And that's the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this, and this is just I'm getting into a little tangent here, but I feel like they changed the way Ant-Man's powers work. He doesn't really have powers, but they changed the way his like technology or like his fighting style works in this movie.
How so?
Well, because in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, they I'll just call it Ant-Man 3 from now on. But
this was the third one?
Yeah. It was
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man.
In the second one?
Exactly. It was Ant-Man.
That was when he first got big, right? In the second one?
Yeah. It was Ant-Man and then Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think technically he first got big in Captain America Civil War. Yeah. So it was Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So in Ant-Man 3, he's talking to his daughter about like how to use the like shrinking technology and like how to fight people, and he's like, yeah, you shrink and then you get big again and punch him and then get, then you shrink again. But I feel like in the other Ant-Man movies, it's like, yeah, he just shrinks and he becomes super strong when he shrinks, and he just punches people as a small person. So people are just getting like invisibly hit and stuff. And that's like really fun and entertaining. Yeah. Whereas in this, it was like, no, you shrink and then you quickly get up and you punch him and then you get small again. And it's like, what? That's not what I remember.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really remember the Ant-Mans to like be able to for sure confirm that, but I feel like I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah. And Luis wasn't in this one.
I know. He's the only good part of that.
Yeah. So, yeah, overall,
I just can't get over it. Like, I think Kang is such an interesting villain, and I think his threat level is like 10 times scarier than Thanos, in my own opinion. Because he's messing with like time and things and timelines, and that's really, really scary. And he seems really powerful. But like, I don't want to spoil the movie.
No, you don't have to spoil it, but like,
I feel like the events that happened just like didn't equate with how, like with Kang, like with how strong he is, and like it didn't make sense. It didn't seem plausible. Which, like, of course, it's like a superhero movie. Like, what's plausible? Anything can happen. But like, I don't know. It just like the math wasn't mathing for me, and I was just like, what? There's no way.
The point of this movie was to like fully introduce Kang as a villain in like a Marvel movie, because they did technically introduce him at the end of Loki season 1.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's people that didn't watch Loki season 1 that just watched the movies, and so it's like it's really introducing him as like, you know, hey, he was the villain of this movie. He is like the new threat now. Whoa.
But I feel like...
But the events of this movie ultimately felt inconsequential to anything.
And I'm like, there's so much you could have done with Kang in that introduction that would have made people be like, oh my gosh, like, he's going to mess everybody up. Like, he's going to wreak havoc. I've been told that it's not wreak havoc.
Yeah, you've been saying wreak havoc, and I have not been correcting you. But
I've just been sounding dumb.
You've been wreaking havoc.
I know. It just doesn't feel right. It sounds weird. I don't even know what I was saying. I feel like they could have really shown like he's a super, super big threat and like really made us invested. But because they didn't give what I was like wanting out of that, I was like, okay.
Yeah, all I seem to really understand about Kang is that he is this guy who there's a lot of him. I mean, there's a lot of everybody because of the multiverse, but all of him seem to be like quite aware of all of each other.
Yeah.
And are like buds, I guess.
It just sounds so stupid.
And he has a suit that he can shoot laser beams out of his hands, and that's all I know about him.
Yeah.
After watching this movie, like he shoots laser beams out of his hands.
Yeah. It just all felt dumb and pointless.
Yeah. Yep. But that being said, good segue. He's played by Jonathan Majors, and Jonathan Majors is in Creed 3, which we're going to go watch after we record this podcast.
I'm dragging you to.
No, I'm excited. I've seen every Creed movie in a theater.
Okay.
So
I cannot wait.
I actually am looking forward to I'm looking forward to this much more than I was Ant-Man, because this looks like it'll actually be a fun and entertaining time at the movie theater.
I mean, I'm sure it will follow the typical, Rocky Creed formula, but Jonathan Majors, like, dang.
This one,
love him.
This one is the first movie in the Rocky Creed universe that Rocky is actually not going to be in.
That's fine.
Need him?
I
mean, it is, no, I'm not saying we need him. I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah. It was time for him to go on.
Yeah. And like all the other movies, like in the other Creed movies, he's just like, hey,
I love your impression of him.
Like, you gotta know when you've been hit before you can get back up again, or something like that. Or
I
like,
love when you do that.
I think in the trailer for Creed 2, when they're talking about like the Drago's son, or no, he's talking about Drago and his fight with him in Rocky 4, and he's like, that man broke things in me that ain't ever been fixed again. They ain't ever been broke before. And it's like, I'm cool with him just phasing out a little bit. Torch. Yeah,
we don't need him in this. He wouldn't add anything to it.
New generation.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm interested to see if it does follow the typical like formula. I don't know. I think it is. I think there is the added layer of the fact that like this is somebody from Adonis's childhood, and they had like the same upbringing, but kind of went down different paths and things like that. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a big fight, I'm sure.
I mean, it's we have our main character, and then we introduce who he's going to fight. We build up their story. There's a literal storyline that like. Boxing matches also try to build up in real life. And, this is like that, but like very real, like childhood friend, different paths, big, strong guys. They have a fight at the end,
I'm like, how is Michael B. Jordan going to win this thing?
I don't know. Somebody.
Jonathan Majors is massive.
I got a feeling somebody in this movie is going to perish. I don't think it's going to be
who would it be?
I don't think it's going to be one of them, but I based on the trailer, I have a theory of a character who's going to bite the dust.
Maybe. I mean, maybe like Tessa Thompson, and it's like Adrian,
No, I think
How did Adrian die? She just like got sick. Did she get sick?
She died? She dies off screen, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
They got old. Because they did Rocky's 1 through 5, and then they did Rocky Balboa, which was Rocky 6, and that was in like 2006. And that was, it had been like 15 years or something since the last Rocky movie. And, Rocky's like standing in front of a grave. He's like, "Oh, I miss you, Adrian." Yep.
Gotcha. Well, I don't know, but I'm just here to see Jonathan Majors.
Yeah. I want to see a part in the fight where Michael B. Jordan is struggling, and then he thinks about Rocky, and Rocky goes, "You got to know when you've been hit so you can get back up again." And then he gets up again, and he hits him.
If you predict that correctly, I will laugh so hard in the theater. People are going to be like, "Why is she laughing?"
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be good.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway,
we should probably get into our content.
Yeah, what's been going on.
I know. There's been a lot of new things out, things that we're picking back up. Just started You again.
Yep. The new season of You.
Yeah. So
I'm almost done with Fire Emblem. Yeah. We don't need to talk about that, though.
Yeah, a lot going on. Maybe we should do a bonus episode of just like talking about the things we've been keeping up with.
Yep.
Starting.
Yep.
And all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of things are like closing and a lot of things are starting up again.
Yeah.
Mandalorian season 3, not that you're watching it, but like, that's going on and that's exciting.
Last of Us is probably wrapping up soon.
Last of Us, great show. Don't have time to talk about it right now, but check it out if you haven't.
Yeah, we should consider doing that.
Yeah. All right, well then, time to get into our assignments.
Yep.
So, for this week, I was given a movie that was released in 2000, starring Tyra Banks and Lindsay Lohan, called Life Size. Quick note about Life Size. Very difficult to find the existence of this movie. It has
literally been wiped from memory.
Yeah. It is hard to find a record that this movie even happened.
I know. They're trying to gaslight us. They're like, you didn't see anything.
So I think what happened is that IMDb made a change to their user experience recently that incorporates episodes of things in a more significant way. Like I was looking at pictures of an actor earlier today, and usually like when you scroll through the pictures of the actors, it'll show you the name of the movie that thing was, what that like screenshot is from. And today I saw a picture of an actor, and instead of showing a screenshot of where that thing was from, instead of saying what thing that was from, it said what episode from the thing that was from. And so I was like, what? And it was really confusing because eventually I did find the listing for this movie on IMDb, but it was listed as like The Wonderful World of Disney,
I can explain
season 3, episode 17 or something.
Episode 8.
Episode 8?
Yeah. And I can explain why that's the thing.
Could you please?
Yeah.
You want to do it right now?
Yes. So this movie was made specifically for television.
Right.
And so this thing called The Wonderful World of Disney is basically like this umbrella term for this time slot that Disney would have on ABC.
Okay.
And in that time slot, they could put Disney content. So they would put Disney original movies, some of their animated movies. So like The Wonderful, and there's a big history to this time slot, and it's been named different things, and it's been on different television networks. Like it started off on ABC, but then there was like a downfall or something that happened between ABC and Disney, and so then it moved over to like NBC. Sometimes it's been on CBS. They bring it back to ABC. They bring it back to CBS. Things like that.
Is it always The Wonderful World of Disney?
No,
it just
so they've called it
that time slot?
It's they've called it different things, but essentially it's all the same concept. It's like a time slot in which Disney can put content on this network, and it's Disney content. And so,
what would be an example of like, Wonderful World of Disney, season 3, episode 7?
This is what I don't know. I don't know why it's called like seasons and episode. Like I don't know why they're labeling it like that. But basically, so like in the 90s, which is when The Wonderful World of Disney started on ABC. They had just acquired ABC. And so the very first thing they aired was Toy Story for the first time on TV.
Okay.
Yeah, on ABC. Huh. Then like movies like Life Size were put on ABC. Also, direct to video movies were sometimes put on the channel. And the what was in this time slot before they took over was America's Funniest Home Videos, which is like, okay, well, yeah. So that was it, and then they pushed that to a different time, and then dedicated this time to Disney stuff.
Okay, well, that's incredibly confusing.
It's and like reading it, because I was on the wiki page, and the history was so long of like what it was called, where it was, what got put on TV. Like The Parent Trap was a movie that like had gotten put on TV for the first time in this like wonderful world of Disney, but like in a different time period. And also it left and came back. So like it's like from 1956 to 1959. It was on this network and it was called this and it did this thing. And then from 1990 something to this time, it like, and then it disappeared and then they brought it back. And like, it's so confusing.
All right. Well, it's a really confusing way to archive things, especially on IMDb. Like that makes me feel like I'm not going to be able to find The Parent Trap if I look up The Parent Trap. Like I looked up Life Size on IMDb search. It does not come up. You can't find it. You have to go. You have to go to Wonderful World of Disney and then go to the episode called Life Size, and that's where the information is. Yeah, that's just baffling to me.
Yeah, they would also put Disney specials on in this time slot.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so it's weird. I don't know.
All right. Well, what a way to kick this off. So if that doesn't speak to, I guess the essence of the production quality of this movie, then I don't know what does.
Yeah, it is. I didn't realize how obscure it was. Yeah. I was like, I used to watch this thing on a regular.
Yeah. Okay, well, so what's the movie actually about? So, as I said, it stars Tyra Banks and Lindsay Lohan. So, the movie opens up. I think I am planning on just going through all of my notes, which are the events of the movie. But it's it's a short movie. I don't think this will be too much, and I think my commentary has some fun flavor to it. So, I'm just gonna go for it. So the movie opens up with this Eve commercial, and Eve is a Barbie doll. Well, it's like a Barbie doll, but it's like a doll of color, and she is this like doll that does everything exactly like Barbie. And so it opens with this commercial, and then it shows these girls who are like going to go buy something on the street, and they see an Eve doll in the window of this store. And this little girl's like, I don't want a doll. I want something with microchips. Which, if that isn't the most late 90s, early 2000s thing a kid could ever say, I don't know what is.
I want technology.
Yeah. I need something,
I want the internet.
In it. Yeah. I need to go surf the web. This isn't cool anymore, Barbie. So Lindsay Lohan plays a character named Casey. She's about 13. She's in the 7th grade. She's about 13 years old. She is on the football team at her school, and her father keeps missing the football game again and again. Her father is Ben. He's a single dad, and he works as a lawyer, I believe. And he's working really hard right now to become partner at his firm, and that is something that is very important to him. So important that he has to continually miss her games. So Casey, she her mom passed away when she was younger, and she is very obsessed with this idea of bringing her mom back to life. So much so to the point where she's on this like sketchy website that is definitively a website that you would see in the year 2000. And she says like, I'm just surfing to her dad. But she's looking up this sketchy witch book on this website. And she really wants to get this witch book because it's got spells in it, and maybe one of those spells could potentially bring her mom back to life. So she goes to the store where this is located, and where they have a copy of it. And these girls that she used to hang out with before her mom passed away. Oh wait, I'm remembering now. her mom passed away 2 years prior to the events of the movie. So these girls who she used to hang out with prior to her mom passing away are like, oh, there's the loner. Like, why doesn't she hang out with us anymore? Her mom died 2 years ago. Like, get over it already.
Which is like, they're the worst friends ever.
Oh, yeah. Like, that's bad. So she goes to the store where this witch book is located, and she realizes that it's $150. She doesn't have that kind of money. So she just steals it, and she like leaves an IOU and as much money as she has. And then she goes to her dad and she's like, look, Dad, I have a magic book that could potentially bring Mom back to life. Let me try it. And he's like, I don't want to hear any of this nonsense. She's gone. And it's like, whoa.
He's like, he's still grieving, and so his like way of handling it when she wants to talk about her mom, he's like, no, he like shuts down. He's like, I don't want to talk about her. I don't want, like, we can't have this conversation.
Yes. Meanwhile, at his law firm, he has a coworker named Drew, who is a woman that's been working there for about 6 months. And she, when we are introduced to him, he is like in a meeting with her, and she's like, oh, like, let me make you and your daughter dinner at my place. And it's like, whoa, she's just going for it.
Yeah. I mean, props to her for being so forward.
And, later, after the dad shuts down this whole witch book idea, they celebrate Casey's birthday together. And he's got the video recorder and everything, the big cake. And then Drew shows up at their house. And Drew, I'm just like, she's down bad.
Yes. I'm like, girl, relax. Leave this man alone for one night.
So she gives Casey an Eve doll and talks about how it's a collector's item, and that, every Eve is a one of a kind, and yada yada yada.
They all have a
serial number
on their foot,
bottom of the right foot. And so while Drew gives this to her, and Casey is like, whatever, I don't want this. This is dumb. She's probably thinking it doesn't have microchips in it. So whatever. And she goes to her room, and Drew is still there. And Casey, with her witch book, makes a pentagram in her room and starts like reading the spell and kind of collecting things that she needs for the spell. And then Drew comes into the room and she just starts touching things. She like notices that Casey has these trophies from like football and stuff, and she like immediately goes like, oh wow, look at how many trophies you have, touches it, and then like knocks a football over, and like stuff just starts kind of falling, and Casey's like, stop touching my things. And
wait, did you say that
I'm gonna, okay. And let's see, what are you talking about? How like Eve, like Casey put the Eve doll she just kind of like set her down somewhere, and then when Drew knocks everything over, she's like, and she kind of like, Casey leaves the room, which was not really clear, but or maybe I'm just forgetting. And Drew notices the Eve doll that she just gifted and is like, oh, like, look at you. And she like picks up a comb and she like combs Eve's hair, and I think it was like her mom, like Casey's mom's comb that was going to be used for the spell.
So did you mention, so Casey had already started the spell right before Drew came in, and so she had like the like pentagram put out and like all the things she needed, including her mom's brush, because she needed something that had like her mom's or something of her mom's. And so then that's when Drew comes in, she knocks everything over, and then Casey grabs the stuff, the like pentagram stuff that she had, but not her mom's brush, and walks to the bathroom. And then that's when she takes Drew takes the mom's brush, brushes the hair.
Yeah. And then I guess that throws things off with the spell there to bring her mom back to life. So, Drew leaves, Casey goes to bed, and she wakes up, and because the Eve hair was on the brush, Eve has now come to life as a grown human being, and she is played by none other than Tyra Banks, like the world's most famous supermodel of the year 2000. And she can't walk. She's excited about human things and stuff, like general, like what you would expect from this plot. Mm-hmm. And Casey's all freaking out. She's like, oh my gosh, my dog came to life. Like, we can't have this. My dad can't see you. He can't know about you. This is bad. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. I got to take you back, or like, I got to turn you back into a doll again. Ay, ay, ay. Mm-hmm. And so... they go to the bookstore. I noted down, like, Tyra can't really act, but it's fine because that's kind of part of the character.
Yeah. And also, just like for context, so I think with the spell, it's like you have 3 days or something to reverse it. Otherwise, it becomes permanent. And so like they quickly need to figure out the solution. And I think Casey's trying to like see if she can reverse it and then do it again for her mom or something.
Well, no, it's like she's like, no, I missed my shot. I can only do this once.
Oh, yeah.
But in order to do the like reversing it spell, she needs volume 2 of the witch book. Mm-hmm. And she looks online, surfing the web and stuff, and sees that the volume 2 Book of Awakenings is not in the store right now, or it's not available online. And she's like, well, we got to go to the store and see if we can find it there. And so the owner of the bookstore like basically knows that Casey stole the book, so she tells Eve to go into the store for her. And all in that scene, Eve is like noticing things on the street, like, wow, look at that, ooh,
she's
roses.
Like, I can smell.
And she's like smelling things and stuff. And so she's like, yeah, I need you to go into the store for me. And she's like, hey, do you have volume 2 Book of Awakenings? And the guy's like, oh, I never got that one. And I had volume 1, but this girl stole it yesterday. And she's like, oh, I know who that is. Look, she's right there outside. And it's like, hey, whoa. And Casey like runs away, and she's like, ah. And she falls in the middle of the street because, every time a character in a movie runs into the street, they have to then fall. And Eve goes to like get her, and there's a truck coming, and she just puts her hand up. And the truck stops.
That used to be one of my favorite scenes.
And it's not like she has superpowers or anything. She's just like, puts her hand up, and she's just dedicated to like, I'm not getting this girl up and getting out of here. The truck is stopping, and that's how we're going to solve the situation. Yep. And that's how it gets solved. And so Casey's dad also had found the book and returned it to the bookstore. So that's, I guess that's resolved. That would explain why the bookstore owner is not, hounding her down still. But Casey's dad notices all this go down, and he's talking to Eve, and he's like, wow, thank you. Like, how can we repay you? And I guess like Casey's like passed out.
Well, Eve like tells the dad, she's like, oh, Eve's like, you're really handsome, like you're such a sweet man. And I think Casey's just like, what is going on? And then like passes out. It's just so much. She just almost died. This doll is to life and hitting on her dad.
So this poor 13-year-old girl is so stressed out that she passes out, which sounds like a serious problem. Anyway, Eve is like, oh, I used to be a police officer in Sunnyvale. And Sunnyvale apparently is a place, that's the place where the Eve doll is from. And she says it's in the middle of America. And Sunnyvale actually is the name of a town in the Bay Area of California.
That was a fact on one of the places that I looked for facts.
Oh, yeah. It was like a neighboring town from where I grew up. So... they were talking about Sunnyvale, and I'm like, oh, it's a real place, but it's not in the middle of America. So, yeah, I guess Casey passes out. She wakes up. She's in her living room, and her dad's there, and Eve is there. And he's like, yeah, this kind woman, Eve, like, she's so nice. She came with us to our house because she also apparently used to be a doctor or something like that.
The dad is so dumb.
Yeah.
I'm like, how would you not be so suspicious? This woman just told you she's a police officer and a doctor.
Yeah. Because, Eve's whole thing is that she can do everything. She's like Barbie, she's a police officer. She's an astronaut. She's a doctor. She's, she probably fences or something, like she can do it all. So he's like, how can we repay you? And she's like, let's go to the mall. and I guess can you explain to me why okay, like when they go to the mall, they all go together, which is already weird enough, but then she like sees clothes and she's like, oh, I really want to buy this, but I don't have any of my credit cards. And then the dad is like, oh, let me like, he's like,
I'll buy it all for you.
This is so weird. Yeah. The dad is like, given your situation, like, why don't we put it on my credit card and you'll just pay me back when you get yours. And given that you don't have a place to stay, you can come stay with us in our pool house. So could you explain to me, like, at what point did she kind of clarify, like, she didn't have a place to stay?
Yeah, it's a point where they're just walking. I think I don't know. I don't remember exactly where they were, but they're walking and she's like, oh, I don't have any of my stuff. Like, all of my clothes are back home. And, like, I don't even know where I'm going to go. I think they're in the mall, but they just haven't stopped at the clothing store. And she's like, I don't have any things. I don't even know. And he says something like, oh, well, where are you going? And then she's like, I don't know. I don't even have a place to stay. Like, I got to figure it all out. And then
I'd have 1,000,001 questions for this woman. I'd be like, how did you get here? What? Yeah. Anyway, he doesn't seem concerned with that. He's just like, hey, pretty woman needs a place to stay and needs a sugar daddy to buy her clothes for her.
He's like, I'll just put on my credit card and you can just pay me back and get your stuff. I'm like, sir. Why are you not worried?
Yeah. So, yeah, he offers to buy all her clothes and give her a place to stay all in one sentence. And then,
no hesitation.
Yeah. And then, of course, like, then Tyra Banks gets to have this whole, like, dress up scene where it's a montage of, like, she's trying on all these different outfits. Which
are, like, some of my favorite scenes. I love a good shopping montage. It's fun. The one in Aquamarine, peak entertainment.
But like before they even have that scene, and they don't really clarify this, but Eve is like, oh, Casey, I need you to dress me because Eve has never dressed herself. And then she's like, ugh. And then it transitions into the montage. So am I just supposed to believe that Lindsay Lohan was just dressing Tyra Banks?
No, I think
throughout this whole montage.
No,
because that's weird.
Because Casey was like, "No, I'm not doing that."
Well, she gets into these outfits perfectly, and then the dad is like, "Hey." And he just buys all of it for her, and then they go to an Italian restaurant, and she's like, wow, real food. And he's like, yeah, I love this place because they sell like real Italian food.
Authentic.
He's authentic. Yeah, it's authentic. And he's just gaslighting himself constantly. And I don't know how they get into this, but I don't know, maybe she's talking to him saying like, oh, you're the most interesting man, and what do you do or something. I don't know, he basically says like, I need a secretary, and she's like, oh, I'm a great secretary. And he's like, oh, you're a secretary? Well, I could use some help at work tomorrow if you want to come in and be a temp for me for a day. And she's like, yeah, and I'm a great secretary. Eve can do everything. And she speaks in the third person a lot. But then she says, I can do everything and all that, but in actuality, like, I just want to help girls. And he's like, my wife believed that. Are you? He's He's like, yeah, my wife really believed in that cause as well. Just helping girls.
Of girls.
Yeah. And then he's like, you married? And she's
he's like,
yeah.
You got a man?
And then
Are you looking for one? I can be that man.
She's like, no, but I look awesome in a wedding dress. But you're the most interesting man I've ever met. That's when she says it. And then I guess they go home. She's staying in the guest house, which I guess was also her mom's, Casey's mom's special place where she would like do art and stuff. But Eve is just like alone in the pool house watching TV, and she's like pressing the remote in a very like weird way because
she's a doll.
She was born today.
Yeah.
And she starts watching the shopping channel and she gets all excited, which I don't know if that sends the right message to girls, but we can get into that later. But Casey then proceeds to tell her dad that Eve is a doll and that she brought her to life using that weird witch book. And her dad is not having it. He's like, no, you're not going to, what? You can't tell me that you turned a doll into a person. Obviously, that's absurd. And
also, no shade to the witch community. Yeah. I love the occult. It's great.
I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to throw shade at the witch community. It's just the way this movie plays around with things. It's a plot device to turn a doll real. So that's I'm speaking of it in that manner, in that context. So he continues to gaslight himself, and then they go to his office the next day, and she gets a job there for the day, and she just starts to click, click, click away on the keyboard, doing nothing. And there are important files on the computer, and she just starts deleting them immediately, just flat out. And Richie, his coworker, notices that, and he's like, oh, maybe we should restore those. I think they're going to want those. But he's like, hey, she's kind of pretty, so he's going to talk to her. And then Casey's dad is like, hey, Eve, I need something in my office. And then Eve notices while she's in his office that his neck hurts. So she starts giving him a massage. And he's like, oh, don't tell me you used to be a masseuse too. And she's like, a massage therapist. And she is, just giving him a little massage. And then Drew, the coworker who's thirsty for the dad, walks in, and she's like, what's going on here? And then Eve goes, she leaves, she starts typing away, and then she's like in a room where there's like a shredder and important documents, and she just starts shredding everything. And she's like, recycling is super important for the planet. And one of the workers there is this woman who's like in a suit, and she looks very like all business. And she's like, what are you doing? Oh my gosh, like we can't have this. And then she is going to call security on Eve, but then Eve is like, I don't know. So they have a conversation, and this woman is basically, Helen is her name. Helen is like, look at you, you're so pretty, you can get by with a wink and a smile or something. And then she's like, I can't even get this man in the office to notice me. And then Eve is immediately like, well, let's take care of that. She whips out some makeup, and she goes, whoosh, 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 whoosh. And this woman turns into like a completely new actress. Did you confirm if it was a new actress or
I
not?
tried to look. I think it was the same woman. Okay. I think it was just the way it looked. But also, speaking of just whipping out makeup, why would she have like makeup for a white woman just like handy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, how did she? I mean, maybe she didn't do like foundation and stuff. She could have just done her eyeshadow or whatever. But it was just like, well, how did she have that makeup handy just to do a makeover in the moment?
Yeah. Well, basically, like, they're having a work party that night, and so Richie, the coworker, invites Eve to go to the that work party, because the dad's like, I'm not dating her. It's whatever. She's just my temp for the day. But she's also like, I also bought her a bunch of clothes, and she's staying in my pool house. He
loves her.
Yeah. Which is weird. But anyway, And, you know, like, in between that scene and the scene where they actually have this work party, Casey finds out that every Eve doll has a code of authenticity and that she can prove that Eve is a doll by going up to Eve and when Eve's getting ready for this party, and she finds the code on the bottom of her foot, which doesn't really, like, come back as, like, a necessary plot point, but, you know, it's there.
It does at the end.
In what way?
Because when Casey and the dad like run to go find Eve,
oh, I guess she shows.
She's like,
okay, yeah,
yeah.
All right. We'll get to that.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. Thank you. You're right. My bad. So they go to the work party. She's there with Richie, and she looks amazing in this dress, and then the dad is there clearly with Drew. I wrote down, I think it's safe to say that the dad is dating Drew because they are just like attached at the hip at this work party and just at work. And even outside of the office, she comes over to his house with a doll to give to his daughter. So it's safe to say that they are dating, but they don't know it anyway. But he's also like falling in love with Eve because, like, you know, how couldn't he?
yeah.
And let's see.
Well, the dad like recognizes that Drew's trying to like pursue him because at the very beginning of the movie, Richie is like, Drew is all over you, man. And then he's like, I'm just not ready. Like, I'm still grieving. I'm not ready. And so then it's like, okay.
All right. Well, there's this whole part where I predicted exactly how this was going to go. Eve is talking with Richie, and then Richie notices this couple, and he's like, oh, it's Mr. and Mrs. Boring. And then they walk up to them to have a conversation, and Eve is like, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Boring. And it's like, oh, yeah, I saw that one coming. And they're like, oh, what do you do? And she's like, well, it depends on what outfit I'm wearing.
Which is like a really funny line. It's like, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was a good line. I did like that. And then Eve and Casey's dad go to then dance, and
it's an intimate dance.
It is a very intimate dance. And then afterwards, Richie says to Eve, like, hey, we should get out of here. And she slaps him, and she's like, you were being forward. And he's like, he like has this whole reflection moment, and he's like, wow, yeah, you're right. I was being forward. I'm sorry. And then he like realizes that he doesn't have to be like bad to women.
Yeah. Eve calls him out.
She calls him out. Yeah.
You don't have to do all this stuff that you're doing.
Yeah.
And like, you're fine. Just be yourself.
Yeah. She's like, just be yourself and you're handsome. And he's like, wow, that's like the best thing a woman has ever said to me in my entire life.
I'm a new man.
Yep. And then she decides that she's going to sing a song, and she sings the Eve song. Yeah. Which is this song that's like, shine bright, shine far, don't be shy, be a star, shine bright,
I'm
shine
doing the dance.
far, be a star. So yeah, and it's basically that, and the whole office gets lit. Yeah. They go hard for this song. Everybody's dancing. Everybody's stoked. It's like all the partners are, you know, dancing and just woo. Mm-hmm. Everybody's fired up. And then let's see. Oh, and then Helen is there with her like makeover that Eve had given her, and Richie notices her. Ooh. Anyway, back to the main plot. So Ben takes Eve back home, and there's like some sparks between them, despite if like nothing of actual substance being there. But Casey notices that they are about to kiss, and she is like, Dad, how could you? But she like never spoke up about Drew when like Drew was coming over and spending all this time with her dad. So like, what up?
We were watching it. I was like, Casey's racist. And you were like, oh. Like,
yeah,
I was just kidding.
Suddenly a double standard for Eve. I don't know.
I was like, I was kidding. But like, interesting observation.
Realistically, I think that was just like poor writing on the writer's part.
For sure.
But
I did not call her racist.
Yeah. Anyway, Casey pulls out the, like, you know, Dad goes to console her, and Casey pulls out the whole, like, go away, I hate you card. Whoosh. And then Casey gets mean during her football practice the next day. She calls another kid a wienerhead. And
poor kid.
But then Eve shows up to her practice and they have like a nice conversation. And meanwhile, at work for Casey's dad, Drew goes to talk to him and he's like, this Eve woman is kind of sus. And he's like, nah, she's just odd. And then then Eve starts cooking back at the house and she almost burns the place down. She's cooking like a sim with like level 1 cooking skills and like almost sets the place on fire. Because that's what happens in The Sims. You got your level 1 cooking skills. If you don't start by having them read a cookbook and you just throw them into cooking, they will set the house on fire. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what she does. And Casey then comes in and, uses the fire extinguisher to put out the fire. And Eve's upset because she's supposed to be a role model for girls. And she's supposed to be able to do everything. But she's realizing that she can't do anything. And Casey kind of talks to her about like, yeah, you don't need to be perfect. And so they start to bond and Casey's like, you know what, Eve, you're all right. And Casey, I wrote it down. Casey's mom taught her it's not about being the best, it's about trying your best. And yeah, they start to become friends. And then suddenly Eve starts psychoanalyzing her in a very profound way and says, you need to let out your emotions and stuff. And like,
you're pushing people away.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, whoa. And then things start to really look up. And then at this moment, I immediately started to theorize. I wrote down, is there going to be a moment where Eve becomes a doll again or almost becomes a doll again? Or are we just going to skip that obvious plot development entirely and she's just going to be in their lives forever? Which I was hoping it would kind of go that way. I was getting invested at this point. But no, they do go the other route. They do go the obvious route. So the Book of the Dead, Volume 2, Book of Awakenings, showed up at the bookstore. It's now available. So I was like, oh, here it comes. We're going down that path. And Eve finds out that the Eve doll is not selling well. And it's going to get pulled back in 2 weeks because people are just not interested in the doll. And they do allude to this at the beginning of the movie when this little girl is like, I just want microchips. I don't want dolls. And so Casey is like, well, I'm not going to turn you back. You're my friend. So, like, don't worry about it. The book is available now, but we don't need to do anything with that.
Yeah.
And Eve is all distraught. And she's like, I'm not selling well, so maybe I shouldn't be permanent? And I was kind of like, huh? Like,
what do you mean?
So I was a little confused. The movie, I might explain it. I'll explain it after I actually explain what happens with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
So Casey is having this like big championship football game, and Ben, her dad, can't make it because he's got to like broker this deal or something. But then the people are going to be late, and he's like, you know what? The Super Bowl of 7th grade football is happening right now. I got to be there. I'm going to be there for my daughter. And so he goes, and he's jeopardizing his chances of making partner. But he's like, I got to get to that game, and I don't care. And Casey sees him at the game, and she is happy. They ended up losing, and it happens. But before that, actually, I got getting ahead of myself. While they're at the game, Eve is walking down the street and she finds herself on clearance and she gets all depressed and she's like, and it's implying that she's going to go cast the spell. And then this is when I was like, maybe she's going to go find the book. And she's going to turn all of the Eve dolls that are going on clearance into real people.
That would be a horror movie.
So they don't get thrown in the trash. Because my whole thing was that I was like, if she's going on clearance and they're getting pulled back, if she turns back into a doll, then she's just going to get pulled back and thrown into the trash. So why would she do that?
Let's just have all the Tyra Bankses everywhere.
Yeah. I straight up thought she was going on a crusade And she was like, I'm going to get that book. I'm going to get all the dolls and I'm going to bring them to life because they should not get thrown in the trash. The movie does not go in that direction.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I was going to say a second ago, but
yeah.
No, that's not. It's not what happens. So Casey's team loses the championship, but it's okay because everybody's bonded, and Eve like is watching it, and she cries for the first time, and then she runs off to the museum, and she figures out like where the Eve doll is being displayed, and she starts speaking the incantation for the spell to bring her back, which I thought was a little weird because they kind of highlighted the fact that she couldn't really read when they were at the restaurant. But now she's able to read this whole...
No, someone read it to her.
Yeah.
They say that in the movie.
They do say that in the movie. She got someone to read it to her.
I mean, hey, they accounted for it. Whether that was plausible or good, it doesn't matter. They accounted for it.
They accounted for it in the simplest way. Okay. So Casey and Dad figure out where she went because, Casey's concerned because she's like, if she does this spell, then it's going to become permanent, and I don't want it to be permanent. And, if she doesn't go, then, Eve is telling, they find each other, and Eve is like, I've already done the spell, I have to go, because if I don't go, then there won't be an Eve anymore, which makes no sense to me, but they do explain it, but I'm like, I need to know what her methods were. Of fixing this, but she's like, I need to go back being a doll. They need me back in Sunnyvale. Okay. And Ben, meanwhile, he's finding out that everything his daughter said about Eve being a doll come to life is true, and he's like, this is unbelievable. Okay, no, this is great. Actually, he's like, this is unbelievable. I don't know what to say, but thank you. It's like the most subtle thank you. He's just like, okay, I mean, I guess it's happening, so thanks, I guess. And I'm just like, saving her toy line was more important to her than being real and turning all the Eve dolls into real people. I see where her priorities are.
That was never an option.
So when she becomes a doll again, she gets remarketed to not have to be perfect. And then everybody suddenly becomes interested in the Eve doll again. And then Casey becomes friends with her old friends again that thought that she should have moved on from her mom's death, which is kind of weird. And then Thirsty Drew gets her man.
Which, after this whole movie, if I were Drew, I'd be like, you were drooling over Miss Tyra Banks.
Yeah.
I don't want you anymore because you clearly didn't want me. You wanted this other woman. No.
Yep. But whatever. Everybody's happy. Everybody's bonded. And then they all sing the Shine Bright song in the museum setting. And then the movie ends with them singing the song and then a freeze frame of all of them posed, and then it cuts to the credits, and that's the movie.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I mean, it's so dumb, but it's so perfect for talking about on the podcast. I love it when you assign me this stuff that's like, I'm a boy, and I'm a man, and I did not grow up with this stuff. I don't
like dolls. What?
there are certain things that I did see growing up that were made for girls, but I just caught them because they were on. It was the only thing on the TV, right? Mm-hmm. This was not one of them. I completely missed this one. So, this was just it was really entertaining. It's really funny. It's so of its time. Mm-hmm. It's obviously there's loopholes galore, and that makes it really fun to poke holes into. Mm-hmm. For the podcast.
Yeah.
It's the whole description I just gave kind of speaks for itself. That was a fun time. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. This is my Three Ninjas.
Right.
Because I had never in my life ever heard of Three Ninjas. It's something that I just never came across. And also I grew up with all sisters. So it's none of us were looking at that kind of stuff.
Yeah. For context, Three Ninjas is a movie that came out in the 90s about three brothers whose grandpa teaches them how to be ninjas. And they're like three white kids, and their grandpa's a Japanese man, and he teaches them how to be ninjas. And I have two brothers, and I always saw myself as the youngest of the three ninja brothers. And so that was something I grew up with that we watched before we even made this podcast. It's great.
Yeah, like this was my version of that. This was my whole. If you were to tell me, pick one thing from your childhood that represents your childhood, like to a T, I would either pick this movie or The Cheetah Girls. Like, those two movies were my life. I loved these movies. So yeah, and I think this movie like really makes me interested in the new Barbie movie, like the Greta Gerwig one.
Oh yeah.
Like when I first heard there's going to be a Barbie movie, even though it's still kind of unclear what this like movie's about. And like Margot Robbie was going to play Barbie, and it was going to be like, you know, Barbie as like a real person. I immediately was like, my childhood is coming back, but like in present day, like what is this going to be? Because it just immediately made me think of Life Size. And so I'm very, very excited. Like I will for sure be going to see Barbie when it very first comes out in theaters. Because I want to like relive this childhood that I had.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as my thoughts go, like, yeah, it's great. If I would definitely watch it again, which feels weird to say, but like, it's a lot of fun. It's not a hate watch. It's a like.
It's heartwarming.
It's heartwarming and silly. It's just like fun.
Yeah.
It's like for us to watch together. I wouldn't watch it alone.
Yeah.
I'm
going to come home and you're going to be like, Eve's great.
No, it's just like, you know, like if we have daughters one day, like, yeah, I'm going to be, or son. Well, sure. Yeah. You know, and if they want to watch this movie, I'm going to be fully invested in it. Cause it's a fun time. Yeah. So, if you're thinking about buying the DVD, highly recommend, because this movie was not easy to find, and I can't disclose how I found a way to watch it.
It's not even easy to find to like buy the DVD. Like the DVD's hidden as well. Yeah. Which is wild. But yeah, any other things about the movie you want to say before I get into facts?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. So I explained the kind of like weird IMDb situation. But so some other facts. Lindsay Lohan actually did not audition for this role. She was cast because she had a 3-picture contract with Disney after the success of The Parent Trap.
That sounds accurate.
Yeah. And so for those 3 movies, she did Life Size. She did Get a Clue. And I'm not
saw that coming.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the 3rd movie is. I think the next movie was Freaky Friday, so I'm thinking that's it. But she also
does a Disney movie.
Yeah, but she also does more Disney movies.
Like what?
She did Freaky Friday. She did Herbie. She did.
She did Herbie Fully Loaded.
Yeah, Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So since the next one that came out was Freaky Friday, I'm assuming that's like the 3rd one.
Yeah, I think, you know, now I'm really reflecting, part of what made this extra entertaining was that this is like the only Lindsay Lohan movie that I have not seen. Like, you know, like there are so many Lindsay Lohan movies that came out at the end of the 90s and the early 2000s. Yeah. And for some reason, I've seen every single one of these things, except for this one.
Even Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen?
I've seen that.
Wow.
Yeah. There's like a guy who's like a music star or whatever, and she's like, "You're a drunk" or whatever. That happens, right?
I don't remember. I just remember the songs.
That girl is the one. Yeah.
Teenage drama
and
queen.
Megan Fox is in it. She's upset that she didn't get the role.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. See, seen it.
Yeah. So Lindsay Lohan was popping in the Disney world. So yeah, another just like fun, interesting fact. So as we've mentioned, every Eve doll has a unique serial number, and like a certificate of authenticity. It turns out that all the dolls actually had the same number printed on their foot.
Oh, that's funny.
And so in the movie, they show a few a few dolls, and then Eve shows her foot, and it's actually the same number. They didn't change the number.
So like all of them just had the same code.
So technically they did not have a unique code of authenticity.
That's funny.
This is like a random fact, not necessarily specifically about the movie, but when I was looking for facts about the movie, when I was looking for where we could watch the movie, I came across this article about Disney movies that you can't stream anywhere. Mm-hmm. And 2 of them are like movies I really like, and I just wanted to share them. One is My Date with the President's Daughter, which I love that movie.
That's a good one. I've seen that.
I know. And I've been waiting for Disney Plus to put it on Disney Plus. It has not.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
I know. She has this like pink dress that I absolutely still want to this day. And then another one was Model Behavior with Alicia Silverstone. I don't know if you remember that one. It was like...
Yeah, I've not seen that one.
It was like 2 girls who looked the exact same. It was literally just Alicia Silverstone playing her, the same person.
Of course.
And one was a supermodel and one was just like a regular teenager. And they swap places to like experience each other's lives. Because the supermodel is like, I just want a normal life. And
Sounds like The Parent Trap, but
basically
with Alicia Silverstone.
Basically.
Okay.
So there really wasn't much facts about this movie. I do have 2 questions for you, though.
Hit me with them.
The first one is, what was your favorite childhood toy that's not a video game?
Power Rangers Megazords, easy.
Gotcha.
I mean, hands down. That was my dolls, Like you're playing around with your Barbie dollhouse.
I actually did not play with Barbie. I did have Barbie dollhouse, but I used to put my brats in them.
Fair enough. I had my Power Rangers Megazords, and there were like each 5 things that you could put together into one big thing, and I had multiple of them. So, I was playing out all kinds of fictional stories in my bedroom with those things. Wow. I also had Hot Wheels.
You are a Hot Wheels guy.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Perfectly transitions into what I assigned this week, but we'll get to that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Random fun fact about Hot Wheels and Parker and you.
I don't... Okay, go on.
This is going to be a real short tangent.
Oh, yeah. No, this is funny.
We were Zooming with a bunch of our friends, and we were showing our
during
YouTube.
The pandemic.
Yes, during the pandemic. And I was like, everyone expose your like YouTube histories. What have you been watching? And all of yours was just Hot Wheels videos. And we were like, what are you watching?
That day was like, I went into a rabbit hole of like cool Hot Wheels YouTube videos of like tracks that people made in their houses and stuff. Leave me alone.
So funny. We were like nothing but, and it became a joke in our whole friend group.
It's a running joke. Yeah. Literally the Hot Wheels video game was put on Game Pass like a month ago or something, and our friend Hector texted me to let me know.
Like, here's Hot Wheels.
And he's like, Hot Wheels is on Game Pass.
Your favorite thing.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Second question, and maybe it's the same answer for this question.
Okay.
If something from your childhood could come to life, what would you want it to be?
Ooh, a Hot Wheels car.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You could drive it.
Yeah, the Megazord would cause too much attention with the government, so
could be like
it would have to be a Hot Wheels car for sure. I had this one Hot Wheels car. It was very speedy looking, like very, very fast looking.
Yeah.
Like literally shapes that just a normal car would not have. Just full speed. I don't even know how to describe it. Just curves.
Yeah.
Fantastic looking. And a big spoiler at the end. That was like flat in the same level of the car. It was like orange and yellow. Great stuff. But realistically, if I had that as a car, it would probably go straight great. But I don't know if it would be able to turn very well. And given what I assigned you for this week, the actual ability to turn in a car is very appealing to me. So I don't know if I would want that specific car, but I own that. I had that as like a toy for a very long time. Like I think if you go to my mom's house, there's like a box with that Hot Wheels in it.
Gotcha.
I'm almost sad I don't have it.
Wow.
Yeah, I've had that car for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would also choose. I had this Bratz convertible and it was and it actually played the radio, and like its lights actually turned on and you could hit the horn. I think I would choose that because it was such a cool like electric blue convertible. Or was it, what do you call it? Electric blue? It was like a pale blue.
Yeah. Wait, was this like a little car like that size, or was this like...
It was like to fit your doll. It was big. It was
it was for your doll.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't like one of those things where the kid like gets in the truck and like drives it around on the sidewalk.
I did have a Barbie Jeep.
Oh.
Yeah. See, here's the thing.
I did not have one of those. My mom would not allow that.
I was afraid of mine because it made a lot of noise. So I would drive it just like very short distances, and then that was it. My mom said I used to just get out and push it. But I had a lot of Barbie accessories. Like I had the dollhouse, we had a jet, I had my Barbie Jeep that I could drive, I had a Barbie cell phone. But I never really played with Barbies. Like I would use all those things with my Bratz dolls, because like Bratz were my love. Like I loved them so much. Like in fact, to answer this question, at first, before I thought about the car, I was like, I would have, if I were a kid, and something were to come to life, I probably would have chosen one of the Bratz boys that I had. And like, so he could be my boyfriend. You know, he could take me on a date.
Nice.
But then I thought about the car. I was like, oh, that's better. That's better than a boy.
Yeah, I had, I had the Hot Wheels, I had the Megazords, which were basically vehicles. And I also had those like line racer things where it's like you'd put, it was like an electric thing. Like you'd put these like plastic track pieces together, and you'd customize them into a racetrack. And there would be like metal lines on each of these pieces that would they'd come together, and you could put two of these little like cars on it, and you'd have like the metal would make contact and with the metal in the track, like metal underneath the car, and then you just like hit go on your little device, and they would just book it through this little track that you made, and you had to like slow down to make sure that you like didn't fall off the track, and you could put loop-de-loops in it and stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like that was a thing that I had.
Hot Wheels.
I am
sponsor
prepping.
Us.
That was not Hot Wheels, okay? That was not Hot Wheels, but Hot Wheels are cool too sometimes. But all of this I'm saying this all to prep for the next thing that we end up talking about, because it's all car related.
Very true.
But before we do that, anything else that we would like to say about Life Size?
I'm all done, if you are.
Okay. Well, it was great. If you ever come across an opportunity in life to watch this movie, just know that is actually a scarce opportunity. So you should just go ahead and take it and watch the movie.
Yeah. What a bummer. It's such a classic,
Yeah.
Why are they...
All right, let's transition. Yeah. What did I assign you?
Yes, so I got assigned an anime called Initial D. Initial D.
Initial D.
Yeah, it came out in 1998. And I will probably have this will probably be the shortest description of anything I ever give.
All right. Explain it to me.
I also only took notes on the first episode.
What? We watched 5 episodes.
And did anything happen in those episodes?
Yes.
Barely.
A lot happened.
Barely.
All right, explain it. I'll fill in the rest.
Okay, so at the beginning of the show, we get introduced to these two guys named Itsuki and Takumi. And they're friends, and they work together, and they go to school together. And Itsuki is like really into cars. He's like looking at a magazine and talking about cars and just yabbering on. He's very annoying.
He is indeed very annoying. He's probably my least favorite character.
Yes. And he's like, we need to save up our money so we can get a car. Like, I want a car. And Takumi just like doesn't really care. And he like doesn't seem to know much about cars. And he's just like, whatever. He's a very kind of like,
spacey.
Yeah, he's just kind of like monotone, just like going about through motions. Like he doesn't really have much personality, I guess. And so
fair.
Yeah, and so they work at like a gas station together. And a coworker of theirs races cars.
Yeah, Ikatani.
Yes. And so Ikatani is like lets them come in the car with them as he drives.
Well, Ikutani is part of like a local street racing crew, and they're called the Akina Speed Stars.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a meetup tonight, and he's like, "Why don't you come with me?"
Yes. So he drives, and Takumi is like scared for his life, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, stop driving so fast." Anyway, they get to their destination. They're hanging out. They're chilling, and all of a sudden, a bunch of these cool cars come riding up. Very Fast and Furious style, you know? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's the Red Suns. It's the Red Suns. And so...
We're laughing right now if you're listening audio only because I'm pointing to my shirt, which has the Red Suns logo on it.
Yeah. And so the Red Suns get out of the car, and it's basically these two brothers, the Takahashi brothers.
Nice.
There we go.
Yeah, the Takahashi brothers.
Yes, the Takahashi brothers get out of the car, and they're like, let's have a race, but we'll give everyone time to practice, so let's set it up for next Saturday. And so they're like, oh my gosh, like, we're going to race against the Red Suns. We got to practice. Yes. So basically, Ikutani, did I pronounce that right? Is going to practice for this race. And he's just like not doing very well. But meanwhile, there's this talk about somebody who owns an 8.6 who's the fastest driver, and he's a tofu delivery boy, but like no one really knows who he is.
Okay. You're getting it all wrong. So at the beginning, when Itsuki is talking to Takumi about cars, he's like, why don't we get an 8.6? And Ikutani overhears them talking about the 8.6, and he's like, oh, you guys have good taste. I mean, it's an older car, but like, you know, it's a good car. And you know, they go to this meetup. The Takahashi brothers show up. That's Keisuke and Ryosuke. And Keisuke is gonna do the race, and he's the one that's gonna be doing the race on Saturday, or I guess he volunteers to do the race on Saturday, and he drives a yellow Mazda RX-7 FD. Meanwhile, Ryosuke's brother drives a white RX-7 FC, which is the older version of the RX-7. Now, that night, like, you know, everybody's practicing, and Ikutani's like, whoa, you know, I'm probably going to have to represent the team, so I'm going to practice really hard. And he's practicing, and the Takahashi brothers are just observing, like, everybody on top of a hill, and they're like, these guys suck. And that night, Keisuke is driving his car through the mountains of the Mount Akina mountain pass, and somebody pops up in his rear window, or in his rear mirror, and like is keeping up with him.
Yeah. So
and that car is an 8.6.
Yes.
And it's like, it's an older car, and he's like, how is this old car keeping up with me?
Yes. And in fact, he passes him, like they start kind of like racing, and the 8.6 wins. And so he's like, oh my gosh. And he's like, well, it's because I'm unfamiliar with the mountain. So like that guy was a local. He probably knew how to navigate it.
But there's this famous part, and it's a meme as well, where the 8.6 passes him and then does an inertia drift, which is like his tail end kind of pulls out, and then he like bounces, like he takes a right turn and his tail end kind of pops out, and then he takes a sharp left turn, and like the backside of his car bounces to the right side, and he like takes that turn perfectly. And when Keisuke sees it, he's like, Kansei Drifto? And it's like, that's a meme. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. But
you can explain from here, because I don't.
Okay, well, basically, wow. Okay.
Well, I mean, I'll explain when it comes to the race, but like, here's the part that I'm missing. I'm missing, like, there were like two older gentlemen who kept talking about.
All right, I'll fill it in.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Keisuke sees this car that passes him at night, and he's like, what the heck was that? Who was driving that car? What's up? So he goes to the gas station, and he finds Ikutani, and he's like, I don't know who it is, but somebody in your town is driving an old 86 and they are really fast and they need to represent you guys at the race on Saturday. And Ikutani's like, I don't know anything about this. And we find out that Ikutani's boss, Ikutani, Takumi, and Itsuki at the gas station that they work at, their boss is like, oh, you know, this guy used to drive an 86. And he was the best back in the day. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't really, like, he still drives, you know, at night sometimes because he's making tofu deliveries. Mm-hmm. And he calls up this guy, and that guy ends up being Takumi's dad.
Yeah.
And Takumi's dad is like, oh, actually, like, I don't make the deliveries anymore. My son has been doing it as of 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's like this kind of like cognitive dissonance of like, wait, what? Like, Takumi's doing it? Is Takumi the one doing it? Mm-hmm. Because Takumi is super aloof about cars and doesn't seem to care at all. Mm-hmm. And so Takumi then like wakes up in the morning because he has to make a tofu delivery for his dad's tofu shop at like 4 a.m. And so Takumi gets up to make the delivery, and his dad pours a cup of water and puts the cup of water
in a cup holder.
In a cup holder. Don't spill it. He's like, make sure you don't spill it. And the point of his dad putting the cup of water in the cup holder is that like the tofu that he's delivering has water in it as well, and they can't have it spilling because they're delivering it. But he needs to make the delivery fast and early at night, and he has to go through the Mount Akina mountain pass to get to where he's delivering it to every single night. So he gave Takumi the cup of water to basically teach him to develop his driving style, driving every single night without spilling that water. And by Takumi just having that experience every single night of mm-hmm. driving and figuring out how to not spill the water, he becomes the ultimate drifter on this mountain pass. Yeah. And okay. But he doesn't boast about it at all.
Yeah. I think I can take it from here.
Okay.
So now we know Takumi is a great driver, but no one else does. And so at some point, Takumi is at school and there's a girl and her name is Mogi.
Yes.
Which, like, she's such a weird character and has a weird relationship with her dad that I won't get into, but
I will get into, actually.
In your facts?
No, not in my facts. It's just because I know you're not going to finish it, so I just need to clarify.
What can you clarify? Okay, let me set the tone real quick before you say what you got to say.
Sure.
Basically, so she's like this like rich chick. In the way she talks to Takumi and Itsuki, she's like, you guys have to work all these hours for no pay. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. And I'm like, girl. She's like, my dad just gives me that in like one day. And I'm like, oh. So anyway, she always like, she'll be in the car with her dad. I guess her dad's like taking her to school or whatever. And her dad is like, oh, I'll buy you a swimsuit. I love seeing you in swimsuits. And she's like, oh, Dad, stop being gross. Like, it's so weird.
All right. Here's where I come in to clarify things. It doesn't make it much better, but she's not saying dad. She's specifically saying papa, which doesn't make it better.
What?
So when you keep watching the story, all right, I do think that this is the most like useless aspect of the grand scheme of this show, because this is basically the girl that Takumi like has he develops like a relationship with. So that is not her dad; it's her sugar daddy. It's an older man who owns a Mercedes that buys her stuff. And he like is entertained by like giving her this, showing her affection by buying things, and she's like nice to him and stuff.
Okay, see, normally I would be like, go ahead, girl, yes. But like the fact that she's a minor, gross, disgusting.
They are like seniors in high school, I will say.
No, disgusting.
I'm not saying it makes it better. I'm just trying to help clarify the situation. It's a weird. Like straight up. Like it's a very weird subplot.
So like it doesn't even need to be there. That's what makes it even worse. It's like, who is this for? What is this serving?
I don't know. It does come back later in the show. Like, and I don't feel bad about spoiling this because you don't watch this show for this subplot. You watch the show for the street races because they're awesome. And like basically like at some point somebody warns Takumi that like, hey, she's got a sugar daddy, and yep. And he's like, what? And he finds out, he gets upset about it, and they have like a falling out, and she stops talking to that older man. And then like at one point, this guy was like saying bad things about her in the locker room, and Takumi like punches her, or sorry, whoop, my bad, punches
What is this show? It's wild.
This guy in the locker room is saying like bad things about her, and Takumi punches him. And like later, this show has seasons, but they're all called stages. It's like first stage, second stage, third stage. But third stage is actually a movie. And in third stage, that guy that Takumi punched in the locker room, like comes back, and like there's this whole moment where he kind of like kidnaps Mogi a little bit, but then she like gets on the phone and calls Takumi, and she's like, help me. And he's like, oh, I'm pretty sure she's at the lake. It was kind of weird. And he has to like drift through the snow to go rescue her, and he like rescues her and stuff from this guy. And then he's like, yep. But then he decides like not to get into a relationship with her because he just wants to race. But we were getting beside the point.
That's way too much that I didn't need to know any of that.
Yeah, and frankly, neither did I.
Anyway, we're introduced to Mogi. There she is.
Yeah. We drove very far ahead into the plot.
But reeling it back in.
The Takahashi brothers are having a race at Mount Akina tonight, and they want the 8-6 driver to go against Keisuke.
Yes.
But
wait, what are you doing? I'm explaining.
Go ahead.
Things.
Go ahead. I'm just reeling it back in.
Yes. So Mogi is like, take me on a date to Takumi. And she's like, you like to drive, right? You can drive us around, and we can go to the beach and like have a picnic or whatever. And so he's like, okay. So he goes to his dad, and he's like, I need the car on Sunday. And his dad is like, no. And he's like, come on, let me have the car. And so the dad is like, if you drive in this race, right? He's like, if you drive in this race, not only, and you win, I will let you have the car, and I will give you a full tank of gas.
Full tank of gas for your little, shindig with this girl.
Right.
His dad previously found out about the race because Iketani was looking for whoever this mysterious 8-6 driver was, because he didn't know who it was, but he knew that it was like a tofu shop owner. So he like had been bugging Takumi's dad to like do this race.
Yeah.
So that's why his dad knew about it, and he also like overheard from his friend, who is their boss at the gas station, that Takumi had like passed this RX-7. So his dad is like, all right, Takumi's getting pretty good, so I'm going to push him even further because, I'm a legend and stuff. He's like, I'm going to push him even further, and I'm going to make him do this race by bribing him with a full tank of gas and letting him have the car the next day.
Yeah. And so an event that happened that we haven't explained yet is Iketani was practicing his driving and got into a really bad accident. So now he can no longer drive. So Saturday rolls around, the day of the race. The Red Suns show up. What's the other team called? The
Akina Speedstars.
The Akina Speedstars show up. Iketani can't drive, so this other dude has to drive, and the other dude is scared.
Yeah,
he's like, Kenji. Oh my gosh. He's like, I don't know if I can do this. They're like, You've got this. Go ahead. And he's like sweating and everything. Takumi Takumi, sorry, I'm forgetting their names. Takumi hasn't shown up, and the race is like about to start. Like everyone's in their little positions. They've already explained the rules, what's gonna happen, what's gonna go down. And Ikitani is just hoping that this 8-6 rolls up, that Takumi shows up. And he's like waiting and waiting. They don't see anything. It's not him. It's not him. And so the other guy, like all the guys who are racing, you know, they get in their cars. They're about ready to go. And then all of a sudden, here we see the 8-6 coming up. And we're like, oh, Takumi showed up. Woohoo, we're going to see him race. So he shows up, he gets out of the car. They're like, oh, it's Takumi. Oh my gosh. They're like, that's the dude that's in the car. Wow. And so then they're like, race, let's do it. So they line up and they take off. Throughout the race, Takumi is behind, what's the brother's name?
Keisuke.
And he's pretty much behind him, very close, but like still behind him almost the whole race.
Yeah.
But it's intentional. It's, at least it seems intentional. He's like, he has a plan.
It's not necessarily that he does develop a plan, but the whole point is that like the 8-6 is like, for those that don't know what an 8-6 is, it's like it's basically a Toyota Corolla that was made in the mid 80s that became extremely popular because, I've got the guy's name. The Drift King, Keiichi Tsuchiya, the Drift King of Japan, popularized the 8-6 as a car, and the manga is very loosely based on his exploits. And so like the 8-6 is this like old car that became very popular because it was really, really good at drifting. But it's not a very powerful car. It's like a basic, well, not basic, but like it's a Toyota Corolla from the mid 80s. And Keisuke is driving like an RX-7, which is like one of the most famous Japanese sports cars like ever. And so he's got the horsepower advantage. So like every time there's a straight line, Keisuke is just taking off. But then every time there's turns, Takumi is catching up to him because Takumi is hauling it through these corners. Mm-hmm. And so that's why like Takumi doesn't really have a chance to ever get in front of him because his car's just not fast enough. But go on.
Yeah, but what gets him past, what's the brother's name again? I'm sorry.
Keisuke.
What gets him past Keisuke is this little trick move where he puts his there's like, and this can only work on, what's the mountain called?
Mount Akina.
It can only work on Mount Akina because there's like a little ditch at some point on the road.
In the middle of the turn.
Yeah.
Like on the inside part of the turn.
Yeah. And so Takumi at some point puts his wheels, like the side wheels, in the ditch, and it like propels him basically.
Yeah, he like uses the centrifugal force and like propels his car through it because his car is basically on rails.
Yeah. So it propels him, and so he ends up getting in front of I'm sorry, one more time. Keisuke. I keep forgetting their names.
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
He gets in front of him. And so ultimately by the end of that episode, he wins. And Keisuke is really upset about it and is like, oh my gosh, he beat me. Like, what the heck? And he doesn't understand what happened. He doesn't know why Takumi was able to get in front of him. And his brother goes up to him and is like, I know exactly what he just did. And explains the trick to him. And is like, that's why he beat you. And so I'm going to assume, because this was kind of like one of the last episodes that we watched, or the last episode.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume it's like going to be a constant battle between Keisuke and Takumi, or at least these reds. Well, now the brother's like, I have to race him. Like, I need to beat him.
Yeah, I mean, from there, where the story goes is that like other street racers challenge Takumi, and Takumi ends up beating them. It's like he goes against Nissan GTR Skyline, which is like a very fast all-wheel drive car that does not drift. There's like another guy who is like, let's do a duct tape death match, which is like where you have to duct tape your right hand to your steering wheel, which makes it really hard to turn through the corners because you can't really like turn the wheel very much. So like he gets into a bunch of different like races with a bunch of different local drivers, and it all leads up to the end of the first stage, aka season 1, where he goes against Ryosuke, and they have like, you know, the greatest drift race of all time. And you know, Takumi ends up winning, and then from there, like, you know, the second season explores like, you know, Takumi ends up going against somebody who beats him, and he also blows out the engine, and he has to get the engine replaced, but then he becomes even faster once he gets a new engine. And then there's like, you know, all this base, and then like Ryosuke, who is like basically the head of the Red Suns, has this whole dream of, and he literally calls it Project Dream, or no, he calls it Project D, but the D in initial D stands for dream, we find out. And he has this idea of creating Project D, where he gets like, you know, the best street racers to basically like take over, to like show up at every single mountain pass that has like a local team and challenge them and beat them by doing like the uphill and the downhill. So he recruits Takumi to do the downhill race, because like the 8.6 is perfect for the downhill because it's got like gravity to its advantage. And then he gets his brother Keisuke to do the uphill battles because his RX-7 has like the horsepower advantage. So fourth stage of Initial D is all about Project D and them going and like teaming up, the two of them, to then take on like all these different like extremely fast drivers at, you know, in other areas. And that's like the whole, that's what the whole show focuses on, them meeting people, developing like some kind of relationship with that person, and then playing up their dynamic, and then having a race, kind of like a Rocky movie, you know, where they have a boxing match at the end, but in this case they have a drift race at the end.
Yeah, so my thoughts on this show. My thoughts on this show. I had a really hard time with this show. I couldn't care less about cars. Let me start with that. I couldn't care less about cars. I have never seen any of the Fast and Furious, at least through completion. I've seen parts of Tokyo Drift, and that's about it. I just like, I don't know. It's like when people talk about cars, my mind blanks, and I just like, I'm thinking about a million other things. I'm gonna be honest. As you were talking about that, I was thinking about ASL.
Wow, just now?
Yes. And it's like it's something I just can't control. It's like car talk is a whole other language to me.
Yeah.
And I just zone out, and then I'm like, I don't know what they just said, and they mentioned a lot of things, and I don't know what 4-wheel drive means, and I don't know what this means, and I don't know what that means. Like, I just know I have a car that goes from point A to point B, and I know how to change the tire, and I have to go get my oil changed. Like, that's all I know.
I understand.
So I just like, I found this show very boring. We started watching it at night, which was fine, and I felt like I was keeping up. But why I struggled with explaining the second half of the show is because we watched it early in the morning, and I was like trying not to fall asleep. Like, it was just like, it was putting me to sleep. Like, I just could not do it. And so I got lost. But then at the same time, I was like, well, nothing really nothing happens. It's just a matter of like, when will they figure out like Takumi can drive? And like, it was so simple. And I was just like, the show's too simple. Like, it was just too simple.
It's extremely simple, and it's formulaic. It's just like, it's just about getting to the parts where they race, and then making the races as fun as possible.
Yeah, but even the race, at least this first race, it felt like the same clip being shown over and over and over.
Whoa.
Until he does a little trick, and then it's like, oh, something new. And then like he finishes. But like, essentially, he's just trailing behind him. They make a turn. They both go, And then trailing behind him again, they make a turn. And like it just kept doing that like 5 times. And then finally he gets to a point where he can do his little trick thing. He goes forward and it's like, okay, done.
See, the difference here is that you just don't find that interesting. And I see that and I think that's awesome.
But it's the same thing over and over.
No, it's no. No.
What made every single drift different?
I mean, nothing. They're just beautiful to watch.
But you understand my point, and it's a repetitive.
Yes,
theme,
I
visually.
understand your point, but like the exhilaration of being able to actually do that is just like it's too impressive. It's too cool. It's the greatest thing that one could ever learn how to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is in my DNA that just gets me so fired up about it. But it's like, oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah. It's just not for me. And that's okay. Some things I did like. Okay. I really like the opening and end credits. Especially the end credit because it is weird and it's very fun to watch. Like I was more entertained by the end credits. Every time it was the end of the episode, I was like, ooh. Because it was like a weird music video and I just thought it was so entertaining.
So the opening and end credits for this show were done by this Japanese band called MOVE. And they do the theme songs through the whole show.
Nice.
This is a fun fact.
Gotcha. A second thing I like, and also is a question of mine. So every time when they're driving, they always show a clip of them like pressing on the pedals, and everyone's wearing like New Balances.
Yeah.
And I really liked that for some reason. I don't know. I just liked seeing their New Balances, and so then I was like, was there some sort of partnership? Are New Balances like a Japanese brand? Like what's the deal with that?
Unfortunately, I don't know. I had a note. Literally, my second note here is look into New Balance, and I forgot to look into New Balance.
No, it's the one thing I wanted to know.
Yeah.
I was hoping to learn.
What I did learn, so like the New Balance thing did not come up, but what I did learn was that the show in the first season-ish did not have the rights, did not have the license for each of these individual cars brands. So they were able to depict the cars, but not the brands of the cars themselves. So they, every time they're talking about these cars, they're not saying, oh, that's a Toyota or that's a Mazda or that's a Nissan. They're just referring to the cars by what the car is. But the shoes that they're wearing are very clearly got a big N on them.
It. Yeah.
So,
and they're like aesthetically, it's like the New Balance. Like, it's New Balances. Yeah. They just visually look like New Balances.
So I don't even know how to combine all that information into a synthesized hypothesis. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the creator just must have really liked New Balance shoes or something.
I get it.
Yeah.
They're not bad.
So what did you think of the animation of the cars?
I thought it was weird. So, okay, first about the animation. One thing I love about the opening credit scene is it reminds me of like the Sonic intro.
Yeah.
It's just so silly.
I love like the sound of the theme song, like of the first season of this show, like compared, like juxtaposed with like the darkness of night, while watching it is such a vibe for me. It comes on. It's like doom 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 doom. Oh no, sorry, that's the wrong song. But it's kind of like that.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. I know. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching. Like I said, like the opening and the end credit scenes were my favorite part of watching this show.
So what did you think of the animation of the cars, and what did you also think of the music that plays during the races?
I don't remember the music. I'm not a music person. I don't really pick up those things. In terms
I have a whole bunch of notes on the music.
Yeah, in terms of the animation of the cars, I thought it was cool, I guess.
Well, can we describe what the animation of the cars was like?
I cannot. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's just cars. The wheels moving, like the wheels feel like a different style of animation than the actual car itself, like the body of the car.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to get at is that anime is typically hand drawn, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's a 2D flat medium, right? But that would have been a lot of work to hand draw all of these like car races. So what they did was that they 3D animated it. And because this show came out in 1998, the animation for these cars it looks like PlayStation 1 graphics, which I love. Mm-hmm. I think that is like it's very nostalgic for me to look at and be like, oh man, like that animation is bad, but it's great for how bad it is.
So they did that with the environment too, then.
Yeah.
Because the environment very much looks like a video game.
Yeah. The environment, like during those car scenes, like you see the grass and stuff, and it's just like a flat, it's like grass texture. Like... it like not good.
Yeah.
And like they'll show the character. Like in the 3D modeled car, and the character just looks like a 2D cutout of a person, sitting in the car, which is hilarious.
It's like, when you get like you're playing a video game, especially an old one, you get stuck behind some like a wall or something, and it's like a weird pixelated like big color. Does that make? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not even a little bit.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well,
like your clip, like the camera is clipping through the wall.
I don't know what
something.
that means.
Like when one object goes into another object.
No, I don't. I guess so. I guess it's like your character. Your character's like in a like you're like stuck behind a bush, right? And then it like makes it like it looks like you zoomed in like into.
Oh yeah.
That's what the environment looks like.
Yeah,
what the grass looked like.
Oh, okay. Well. Yeah, so because like this was made, it was made in 1998, so the cars just look like that. For each consecutive season, the animation gets progressively better.
I would hope.
Yeah, and it gets to a point where it almost looks 2D, but it still is 3D animated. So yeah, as far as the music goes, so this show is practically synonymous with the Eurobeat genre. So all of the background music during the races in this show is Eurobeat music by like Italian music artists. And it is a very specific sound that you don't hear anywhere else. You literally only hear this genre while watching Initial D. Mm-hmm. And that is like to the point that it's become a meme. Like the whole genre basically has become a meme. Like Initial D's music is a meme. And people who know that meme or know the show know what it is. So like one time when I rewatched this show a couple of years ago, I was driving somewhere late at night and I was listening to Eurobeat music from Initial D super loud, and I was at a stoplight, and these guys, like a bunch of guys in a car, rolled up next to me, and they had their windows down, and they could hear my music, and they were like, yo, and I was like, hey, and like, and it just kind of like took off really fast. And that was like a moment between drivers that was like, I know.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm like, yeah, the music goes hard. I love it. Like the music, the late 90s animation style, like just with the hand-drawn animation and with the bad 3D animation and just like the general like late 90s anime vibe, like for me, it's like a perfect recipe. And like this story like is it's like a formative story like for me. Like when I was in high school, my first exposure to Initial D was my brother. Like he drove me to and from school because he was 2 grades above me, and one day his friend lent him volume 1 of Initial D, like the manga, and so he had it in the car and he was driving us home, and I basically like read the manga in the car on the way home. And I was like, what is this? Like, I had never heard of it. I had no idea what it was. I just, like, it was in my lap. And so I just read it. And I was like, this is, like, really cool. Like, I got, like, fired up. Like, I'd seen Fast and Furious movies. I'd seen Tokyo Drift. But I never particularly thought cars were cool. But as soon as I read this, I was like, this is the coolest thing. And it just kind of like took off for me from there. Like all of my interest in cars like originated from that specific moment. And like I read the first 3 volumes of the manga, found out that there was an anime. My brother, his friend, and I would go to the local library and rent the DVDs for this anime, and we would watch it. And fun fact about the localization of that manga and of that anime that we watched, like that we watched the dub in English, and at that time, Initial D, when it was first localized, it was localized because there were these arcade machines for Initial D that came over to the West, and there was a name limit, like a character limit for the characters' names that they could display on the screen. Like in Japanese, that's not a problem because they can have shorter characters, less characters that represent like phonemes and stuff. But when it's all typed out in English, it's like it's more characters. So they couldn't fit those in. So they shortened the characters' names. And because they shortened those characters' names in the video game, which was like the first localization of the property, they then transferred those names over to when they localized the manga and the anime. So Takumi, instead of being Takumi, was they said his name was Tak, or Tak, and Itsuki was Iggy, and Keisuke was KT, and Ryosuke was Rai, and Ikatani was, this is my favorite one, Ikatani was Cole.
Dumb.
They just gave him a full English name.
Lame.
So like my first experience with watching this anime was this original English dub that everybody was like Tak and Iggy and KT and Rai and Cole, and it was like comparatively bad to like we watched the subtitled version because the original localization of this, they changed all the names, the voice acting was like not that great, and they really tried to Americanize it so that it could be on TV. So the company that originally did that, they it's this company called Tokyo Pop. Don't worry, this will get interesting in a second. You look very bored. They took out all of the Eurobeat music from the original Japanese version, and they replaced it with rap and hip hop music. And the like that opening that you really liked, they recorded a new song over that, and it was this guy that was like, "Start your engines, drive with the vengeance, gasoline dreams," and it's so all of the music that they replaced was done by one guy, DJ Milky. And turns out DJ Milky was, I kid you not, the CEO of Tokyo Pop, the company that distributed and licensed the show. And he is like this white man that lives in Northridge. He also made music, and so he did the music for the show, which is like bold move. But that did not pan out because Funimation then they acquired the license, and they redid the entire dub completely in 2009 with all the original names, all the original music, and now the show is like as we know it today with like the original depiction of what it was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. But there was this weird gap of time of like 11 years where it was like Tak and KT and like just all this like non-Eurobeat music made by like one guy who was the CEO of the company distributing it, which is like such a weird thing to me. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
I was trying to think of something, like a thought.
Nothing to say about
weird.
that?
I don't know. It's weird to me to like Americanize something.
Yeah.
And like think that will make it more appealing. It's like, no. Like, well, I want the content in its original form, you know?
That's a very like 2000s way of thinking, especially with like anime. Like there's kind of like a gag where like certain anime would get localized in the West in like the early 2000s or the 90s, and they would they like change people's names to be like these American names rather than their like authentic Japanese names. Or there's like a running gag where like somebody would be eating like rice balls or something, and they'd be like, oh, I gotta go get my hamburgers, and it's like the super like on the nose stuff that's like, no. And I'm really glad that like things have shifted away from doing that, but it's kind of like you look back on it and it's just so ridiculous. And so like people meme the stuff out of, you know, the times that has happened in anime history. Okay, let me run through my other facts here. Okay. All of the locations in the show are based on real places. As I mentioned earlier, Keiichi Tsuchiya, the Drift King of Japan, he popularized the AE86. The manga is very loosely based on his exploits, and he also had a cameo in Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. He was one of the fishermen while the main character was learning how to drift. The show has spawned numerous seasons and arcade games. I used to go to my local mini golf place called Golfland, and in there they had an arcade and they had an Initial D machine, and that was like the most exciting thing ever for me. And to this day, if I'm ever at an arcade that has an Initial D machine, I will play it, because like you just have to, and you got to try and become, you know, the ultimate drifter on the mountain pass.
Is it one of the like driving games?
Yeah. So like, because in high school I thought this was so cool, but also like nobody knew what Initial D was. I thought I was cool for liking this, you know? I wanted to be a drift racer so bad. I thought that would have been like the coolest thing. And nobody knew what it was except for me, my brother, and his friend who introduced us to it. And so like the three of us together would like fantasize about starting our own drift team. And like, I lived in the hills, and the street that I lived off of was this long street in the mountain called Magdalena. And we would joke like, oh, I'm taking the Magdalena downhill tonight. And you look like you're about to laugh. And we had this idea, and it was all like for fun, but we had this idea of like, oh yeah, what if we started our own drift team? We called it the Valco Primaries, where Valco was the name of one of our local malls in the Bay Area that was like perpetually in a state of going out of business, in Cupertino, California. And so we had this idea of like the Valco Primaries, just because Valco like kind of had this like nostalgic name for us. And we call it the Valco Primaries because each of us would like drive our own different colored car that was like a primary color. And I even got some of my online Xbox friends at the time really into that idea too of like a drift team. So we tried to like form our own drift club in Forza Motorsport 3 on the Xbox 360 with the Valco Primaries idea as well. I even made a logo in the game and everything and put it on all of our cars, and I was the yellow car. Good times, like really good times. And yeah, the show just like really lit up all interests that I have in cars. So like Forza Motorsport games still come out on the Xbox, and like I do enjoy like the basic just like racing in those games, but every time a new one comes out, I play it enough to where I can upgrade a whole garage of cars and tune them to drift, and then I just drift them a lot, and then I get bored, and then I stop until the next Forza game comes out. And it's always like the same catalog of cars that I pick out every single time. And like I don't know how they keep making these games, honestly, because the gameplay is always the same. You know, they've made it as good as they possibly can to simulate real life physics. But every time a new one comes out and I play it, I pick out the RX-7. I want to drive the 8.6. The new Forza games have actually turned the 8.6 into like a unicorn car. So it doesn't just come like available. You have to like get it through a special event or something. But my first Forza game was Forza Motorsport 2. And when I picked up Forza Motorsport 2 for the first time, having all of this like interest from Initial D about like drift racing and stuff, and I saw that they had the 8.6 and the RX-7 and the GTR and all of these awesome cars from Initial D, I was like head over heels in love. I played it a ton. I painted all my cars and everything. I really wanted to like, I was just like playing up this idea of like, becoming a drift racer. I watched YouTube videos on how do you drift in Forza. I learned all about like you have to turn off traction control and stability management, and if you're really trying to be cool, you turn off your anti-lock braking system. You have to be using manual. In a Forza Motorsport 3, they introduced manual with clutch, and if you're a real one, you'll use the manual with clutch setting. And I got so into it, like I bought like the steering wheel extension for the Xbox 360, and I like with the pedals and the steering wheel and everything, and I like would watch videos on like how to drift, and I would try to learn how to do it, and I never got it down with the steering wheel, but I played the game so much that if you give me a controller, I could do it perfectly. And all of that just stemmed from this awesome idea of like being the ultimate drift racer on the mountain pass, like late at night amongst all of the other people that are like super into cars and stuff because of Initial D. Whew. And that's my piece.
Wow.
Yeah. Bet you didn't know all that.
Nope.
But like even this shirt, like the Red Suns, like it's a white shirt with the red text. This is the logo that's on Ryosuke Takahashi's RX-7 in the show. And like when I wear this shirt in like California, because we live in Virginia, people don't really know what this is. But like I wore this shirt one time in California, and like people know what that is. Not everybody, obviously, but like certain guys will see my shirt and be like, "Whoa, cool shirt!" And like it's just one of those things where it's like it's subtle. It just says Red Suns. Like, what does that mean? But real ones know, and it's like, ooh, Initial D fan, nice, fellow drifter.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, that is everything I had to say about Initial D. Thank you for listening.
Nice.
Yep.
Let's do our assignments.
Would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm going to assign you Open Water.
What's that?
A shark movie.
Really?
Yes.
Cool.
I figured it is my spring break next week. I'm not going anywhere, but the idea of a beach sounds nice. But then I was like, well, I've given you all these like lighthearted stuff. Let me give you something a bit scary.
Okay.
And this is like an actual good movie. Like it feels plausible.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did it come out?
2000 something.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
2003. Sorry.
Gotcha. According to you, every movie or property that I have been assigning you has either been depressing, dark, or boring.
Or problematic.
So you requested that I give you a short, simple movie that's lighthearted.
Yes.
So I went back and forth between a few things. I found some things that were just kind of like dumb and funny, but then I found one that was kind of like, it's silly and heartwarming at the same time. And I'm pretty sure you know what this movie is. It's called Be Kind, Rewind.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it?
Mm-mm.
Jack Black and Yassine Bey?
Nope.
No? Perfect.
Okay.
I think I'm looking forward to that. I like that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So next week, it'll be Be Kind, Rewind, and Open Water. All right. Sorry for how long this episode was. It's one of the longest. But we'll see you next week. Hope you enjoyed the episode and have a great week.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.